A very warm good morning to all of you. Dear students, once again I would like to welcome all of you to a new session of the history class. I hope that all of you are keeping fine and safe. Today we are going to begin with a new chapter, chapter number 7, Quit India Movement Part 1. Have you ever heard this title before in your history classes? Maybe in your lower sessions you might have heard and studied something about Quit India Movement. Quit India Movement can be considered as the second last step towards the freedom of our nation. So today we are going to study something further, something in detail about Quit India Movement. Today mainly we are going to focus on what were the different causes which led to the beginning of Quit India Movement. Especially two different causes. First one is the Cripps Mission and the second one is Japanese threat. So without wasting time, let's move to the topic. If you want to understand this topic very well, you must know its background. When, where and how the Quit India Movement started. First of all, keep in your mind, when Quit India Movement started in India, at the same time in the world there started the Second World War. It doesn't mean that during the same time it got started, but Second World War started in the world in September 1939 and it led to the beginning of Quit India Movement in India. You know why? Because Britain joined in the Second World War. And before their joining in the Second World War, they haven't consulted with the people of India or the leaders of our nation. And what's the problem? It's their freedom to join in the war, but what will be the problem, or what is the problem with that? What's wrong with that? You might be thinking so. Actually, the problem is that Britain joined in the war, but the army men, those people were from India. Indian soldiers were forced to fight for the Britain. So that's why the people of, especially the leaders of our nation, they were not happy with the decision of the British. And during the same time, Muslim League has put forward a new ideology, a new interest to divide our nation into two different provinces. First provinces will be knowing as India and the other province will be knowing as Pakistan. So the idea of dividing our country into two has put forward by the Muslim League. So all these things happened almost during the same time of the Second World War. Again, the further changes had taken place in this case along with the coming of Winston Churchill, which means Winston Churchill became the Prime Minister of England. As you all know, Winston Churchill was a very powerful leader of England. So it made a lot of changes in the administrative structure of England as well as in India. And again, things have got changed when the war situation in Europe became worse, because every day the war condition in Europe were moving from bad to worse. So finally, after seeing all these problems, the British administration, they understood that it's not good that if they are not ready for going for some kinds of compromise with the people of India. Or in other words, if they are not making some compromise with the people of India, it will badly affect Britain in the Second World War. So that's why they have thought of making some compromise. As a result, the Viceroy of India had made an offer to the people of India, especially to the leaders, and this particular offer is being known as August offer. But none of the leaders, including Indian National Congress, they haven't accepted this August offer. They just rejected it. So this is the background or the situation where the Quit India movement started. Now let's move to the first cause behind the emergence of Quit India movement, that is the Cripps Mission. As I have already told, the condition in the Europe was getting worse day by day. And here further movement took place when the Japanese army started to advance towards India. As a result, the British people forced to break the deadlock between Britain and India. That means they forced to go for some kinds of compromise with the people of India, because Japan started to move towards India, or Japan army started to move towards India, and the British people were knowing very well that if Indians are not cooperating with them, it will become a very bad condition. So that's why they have decided to make some settlement with the people of India. British, they forced to have some settlement with India, and as a result, Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of Britain during that time, he has announced that Sir Cripps will be sent to India for consultation with all the parties, which means a representative from England will be sending to India, and he will be consulting with all the different parties in India and will do the necessary. So it was an announcement made by Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister of England during the time. So finally, as a result of the consultation with all the parties, Cripps Mission has put forward some recommendations. So here we are going to study what were the different recommendations made by Cripps Mission. The first recommendation made by the Cripps Mission was India to be given dominion status after the war, which means India will be getting the power to rule the nation, but still they will be under the British, or in other words, India will be a colony of the Britain. At the same time, they will be having their own administrative system. So that was the first recommendation made by Cripps Mission. The second recommendation was setting up a constituent assembly. In order to form the administrative structure, a constituent assembly will be set up. And how it will be? Members elected by the lower house along with representatives of the princely states nominated by the rulers. You know, I hope you might be knowing what is princely states. The different ruling systems, something like a small dynasty which is ruling a small territorial area. So the princely states, the rulers of the princely states will be nominating a number of people or the representatives, and members elected by the lower house. Like a normal election, some members will be elected. So both these group of people together will be setting up a constituent assembly. And what is the aim of them, or the aim of this constituent assembly? Draft the constitution, because a country will be functioning on the basis of the constitution. So in order to form or making the constitution, a constituent assembly will be formed or set up, and the members of this constituent assembly will be members elected by the lower house and representatives appointed or nominated by the rulers of the princely states. So it was the second recommendation made by Cripps Mission. The third recommendation was India will be a federation of British India and Indian states. So it will be something really like dominion status or dominion power given by the British. So the princely states who were not interested to join this federation can be remained as independent administrative structure, or in other words, they can achieve the dominion status, but still they will be under the British. So it was the third recommendation made by the Cripps Mission. Now the fourth one says that provinces had the freedom to join Indian Union. So small administrative units or small administrative territories, they can choose whether they want to join the Federation of British Union, or they can remain as independent. So it was the fourth recommendation made by the Cripps Mission. The next one says that Negotiation between the Constituent Assembly and the British government for transferring the responsibilities. That means there will be some kinds of compromise between the Constituent Assembly and the British government, because all the powers will not be transferred to the people of India. At the same time, they will be having certain powers and responsibilities. So there will be some compromises. It will be something like a give and take policy. So negotiation will be there, compromise will be there. So that was the fifth recommendation made by the Cripps Mission. Sixth recommendation says that there will be provisions for the protection of racial as well as religious minorities. So these groups of people, especially racial and religious minorities, they will be having certain safeguards, certain protections in different sectors or different activities of the nation. So it was the sixth recommendation made by the Cripps Mission. Finally, the seventh recommendation says that till the constitution is framed, British government will be responsible for defense of India. That means defense of India itself means, you can understand, all the major responsibilities will be vested in the hands of Britain until the constitution is framed. Again, it says that the Governor General will continue with his powers. So these are the 7 different recommendations made by the Cripps Mission. Even though they have made such a number of recommendations, Cripps Mission was a failure. All the different parties and sections of the society, they just ignored, they just rejected Cripps Mission in the following grounds. So these were the different reasons, what the reasons behind the failure of Cripps Mission. First one, it didn't give the promise of independence. All the leaders of our nation, all the people of our nation were waiting for a chance to get freedom from the British, and the Cripps Mission never promised. They never spoke about independence of our nation. Second one says that it includes the partitioning the country. It doesn't mean that dividing country into two, that is India and Pakistan, but rather you might be remembering the provinces can remain independent and they can make their own constitution. Those kinds of clauses were there, which means the country, our country, will be splitted into a number of small countries. So partitioning the country, and the people as well as the political leaders, they were not happy with that. And the third one says that Muslim League opposed the creation of a single union. That means a single country, because they were demanding for Pakistan a separate constituency, a separate dominion status with a separate separate country. So they have opposed the Cripps Mission. And the fourth one says that Hindu Mahasabha rejected it because of partition of the country. When Muslim League was demanding for the partition, Hindu Mahasabha rejected it because it was giving in it was pointing towards the partition of the country. Especially here it means about the different princely states. For them the permission was granted that whether they want to remain as a princely state or an independent administrative or ruling territory, it was possible. So that's why Hindu Mahasabha rejected Cripps Mission. Again, 6 Anglo-Indians labor leaders were against it because they were not given sufficient safeguards. All the different minority communities, all different minority society, weaker sections, they were not having any sufficient or given any sufficient safeguards. They were not having any rights or any special measures to safeguard their interest. So that's why they were against it. The sixth one says that people of princely states have no choice to send their representatives because it was done by the rulers. As you know, Indian national movement was a mass movement where participation of the people was the most important factor. Here just imagine what happens in the case of princely states. Their rulers are sending their representatives, and people can't choose their representatives and send them to this to the administrative structure, especially to the legislature. So people of princely states have no choice to send their representatives because it was done by the rulers. rulers' interests were always reflected in selecting the representatives. And the seventh one says that Congress opposed to the principle of non-accession of the provinces. That means either to join Indian Union or to be independent. That means this particular choice is given to the princely states, and Congress was not ready to accept it. That means if some of the provinces are not ready to join the Indian Union, means they will be making their own constitution. Just imagine, India will be split into number of small countries. So that's why Congress opposed the principle of non-accession of the provinces, introduced by the Cripps Mission. And finally, Congress wanted all the subjects to be handed over to the national government, including the defense. As we have already seen, the Cripps Mission recommended that major things like defense and all other things will be vested in the hands of the British, and the Indian government should go for some kinds of compromises. So that's why, but in return, Congress wanted all the subjects, all the activities of the nation to be handed over to the national government, including the defense. So these were the different reasons behind the failure of Cripps Mission. Now we are moving to the second reason which led to the emergence of Quit India movement, that is Japanese threat. Japanese threat means Second World War started in 1942. Already different causes, different events started to take place in different parts of the world in 1939 from September onwards. But finally the Second World War has got reached at its peak by 1942. And again, here war condition throughout the world was getting worsened. It affected all the different countries in the world. And finally, Japan army attacked Burma and started to move towards Assam. And Mahatma Gandhi observed, Mahatma Gandhi found it, the reason behind the attack of Japan towards India was just because of the presence of British people in India. It was the observation of Mahatma Gandhi. So in such a situation, the Indian leaders, they understood, rather than opposing the British, it is very necessary to save the country from the attack. So that's why the leaders, they have demanded for complete independence. In order to achieve this complete independence, finally began a new movement which is being known as Quit India movement. So these are the two different causes. First one is Cripps Mission and the second one is Japanese threat, which led to the beginning of Quit India movement. So dear students, I hope you have got a very clear picture about Quit India movement, especially the different causes which led to the emergence of Quit India movement. And tomorrow we will be going to continue with the same topic, but some other elements which are related to the Quit India movement. So here I am winding up today's class. Till meeting with a new video, it's a time to take a leave. Thank you.